And we are live. Apologies about all of the delays. This is actually the first time that I'm simultaneously streaming to YouTube and to Twitch. We have Jeff back with us there now. Jeff, you had said there was some issues with my audio. Is that still the case, or?
It seemed like it was with your audio, but no, it was. I when I connected the Bluetooth thing and got back in here, it basically made everything that you sound like it was happening in a wormhole.
Oh,
It was very deep, very slow, and very growly. It was weird.
all right.
So
Okay. Well, look, as long as those issues are sorted out now, then we're good.
just let me know if in a few minutes, if this headset starts getting kind of choppy, I might have to switch to a
Yeah,
different
that's
thing.
no problem at all. No problem at all.
So, okay.
We should have a few more people. I don't know what in the fuck is going on with my Twitch, but it is just not working. It's just not working at all.
I have never. I think I have a Twitch account, but I've never used it. So
Yeah, no, that's pretty fucking strange. Pretty strange. All right. Yeah, so look, we have some things to talk about. I kind of want to give the rest of who I kind of shouted out to, or who I reached out to, the chance to kind of come in. I haven't actually even seen the messages, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, no, I think we'll just kind of crack on.
okay.
Just rather than wasting all of you fine, good people's time. Sorry, just reloading. This. Wait, what? Wait, wait a minute. Hang on there now.
What happened? Is Twitch working now?
Oh, yeah, no. This is, but for oh. Sorry, I just had the wrong fucking thing. No, it's all on me. It's all on me. It's all on me. I'm very sorry. Very sorry. Very sorry. All on my end. All my issues. Very, very, very sorry.
Not all of your issues. Some of those issues were my issues that I imported.
No. Honestly, it's wait, when I get this back. There we go. Right. Are we good? Yes, we are. Right. We're talking about paternity leave. It's, come up. It's been a hot button issue in the last little while. Especially with Pete Buttigieg, who I cannot even believe that I am about to go on the defense for, but, such is life. Look, I'm sure that he's a nice person and whatever, and like I know that his run for president, where he tried to impersonate Obama as much as he possibly could, crashed and burned. But look, I'm sure that he's a decent human. Don't agree with much or if any of his policies, but I'm sure he's a decent human being. Yeah, we just have some disagreements there, but he and his husband recently adopted two twins. Yeah, so obviously both of them being of the male variety, there was no maternity leave to take, and so they both took paternity leave. And yeah, it's been kind of like it's been going around in some circles as being like, oh, that like we can't, like some people are kind of openly mocking them basically, and I don't really kind of understand why, especially from where the criticism is coming from. because we have a video. It's only a very, very short one. It's from Tucker Carlson himself, where he's where like he's kind of mocking Pete for taking paternity leave, and I just don't really, because okay. There's a wider conversation at hand to have here, and we will have that, of course. I'm just going to quickly, and then we'll circle back to it and we'll have a conversation or whatever. But very, very quickly, my kind of initial reaction, or my summarized reactions, is I don't fucking understand it, because the right is supposed to be the party of family values, right? Now they're not, of course, because they're very pro-life. But as soon as you're born, you're fucked, because they don't want to pay for your pre-K. They don't want to give you food stamps. They don't want to give you Social Security. They don't want to give you health care. They don't want to give you fucking nothing. They're not really the party of family values, but they say that they are.
They are pro-pregnancy, pro-childbirth.
Yeah, but after that, just no. They will push the wheelchair that a woman who is about to give birth, they will push that from the courtyard of the fucking hospital into the room, hold their hand whilst they're giving birth. But as soon as it's out, it's right, okay, no, I'm done, I'm fucked now. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so he kind of openly mocked him and stuff like that. But I mean, is there no greater example of actualizing the spirit of family values than taking time off work to bond with your child? It's kind of a little bit. Anyway, look, I know that many people who are watching my stream especially are not going to say I'm being unfair to Tucker Carlson, because but let's let the man speak for himself. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Pete Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went. But now he's back in office as the transportation secretary, and he's deeply amused, he says, to see that dozens of container ships can't get into this country.
Do you hear the slight jab there? I know that was very, very short. Do you hear the slight jab there?
There was lots of slight jabs in there. Everything is sort of a left-handed compliment.
Yeah,
it's all very sneaky.
Well, yeah, no, but it's just the fact that he literally said they're trying to figure out how to breastfeed. It's dude.
What I find interesting is that would Tucker Carlson rather the two children that Pete Buttigieg and his husband adopted have been aborted?
Yeah. I mean, of the two, or would he have rathered them, be in a situation where they would be put into the foster system, which, as we all know, is not exactly a great system, and it's kind of oh God, I don't know, man. It's a strange one.
This is the kind of hedge maze that people end up in, because if you end up doing one thing that kind of comports with something close to what conservatives describe as being part of their traditional values package, you will take grief from it because of some superficial reason, right? They're a gay couple.
Yeah.
Right? That matters more. It doesn't matter if they vote for Trump. It won't matter that they're capitalists. It won't matter that they adopt kids. It won't matter that they will never divorce, never ever. It doesn't matter how many conservative things that ultimately at the end of the day they're not part of the tribe. They'll fail the purity test, and so somebody constantly looking to punch down like Tucker Carlson is going to take a swing at them.
I do just want to point out, chat is saying, Jeff, that your mic is very low, and I did actually kind of pick up on that a little bit. Your mic, it is a little bit low.
Yeah, I can't really adjust it, unfortunately. It's like a Bluetooth kind of piece, so it's
okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
It seems to be a little bit better now. I don't know if you kind of did anything at all, even kind of change it, or you know what I mean? I don't know if it's a headset mic or something like that, and just kind of put it a little bit closer to your mouth or something, but it did kind of seem to be a little bit better.
It's one of those hanging mouthpieces, so I'll have to try to like eat the mic.
Yeah, yeah. It seems perfect right now. Anyway, yeah. It's look. I mean, like pointing out the right's hypocrisy. I mean, like pick any topic that they're in favor of, and they're very hypocritical on in some way. Anyway,
Yeah.
but it's just like, I just don't understand why they're so weird in this area. And like Tucker had said some other things. I couldn't actually find any clips. I was looking for like an hour or so a little bit earlier to try and find clips of like of this, because I've heard it on other people's videos, but they didn't like link them in their description, which is kind of annoying. I just couldn't find like the actual video that they were looking at. And it wasn't just Tucker, obviously. There was a good few people. Like there was fucking Steven Crowder, who I absolutely hate and abhor that I share a first name with, but there we go.
Doesn't he spell his first name with a V though? Like a
Yeah, true. So it is, you know, it's marginally better. But anyway,
I'm just trying to like, bring some comfort where I can.
make it a little bit lighter. Yeah. But it was him. There was a handful of others. You know, like kind of pick your people. I actually tweeted out earlier. It was as soon as I woke up. So like I don't know. It was pretty like early for the States. I retweeted something, and you're not even gonna fucking believe this. Caitlin Bennett was the voice of reason in all of this. Now, how fucked up of a situation do you have to get at where Caitlin fucking Bennett is the voice of reason? Like, how badly do you have to screw up? Jesus Christ, it's insane.
I had forgotten who she was until you tweeted that. That was the first tweet that I saw this morning when I got up. So thank you for that. And when I saw it, I looked at that and I was like, wow, she is being very...
Oh, sorry, no, it wasn't actually on this issue. It was on the Alec Baldwin one. But even still, just the fact. But I was actually only kind of thinking as well. I was like, no, that just doesn't even really sound right. Why would Caitlin Bennett be in favor of fucking maternity leave? Anyway.
Oh, has she weighed in on the Pete Buttigieg thing?
I don't think she has. Hello, Michael.
Oh.
Hey, how are you?
I'm not too bad, man. I'm not too bad. I was hesitant to start with this topic. I wanted to do the Alec Baldwin one second because I think it's the kind of biggest one, right? And like it's fucking headline news absolutely everywhere. Everyone is talking about it. There's a few people who are doing streams and like covering it and stuff like that. But I did want to kind of talk about this, but I also was hesitant to start with it because I wanted to make sure that there was a select few people that were in here, because I know, Michael, that you have children. Jeff, do you have any children?
I do not.
Okay, I don't either. So like, you know, I didn't want to kind of talk about this topic. Just yes, obviously, you know, I can share what my opinions are, and I can talk about like you know why I think it's a good thing and why I think it's a positive thing. But kind of putting you on the spot here, Michael. But like, how, I don't know, does Canada have any kind of paternity leave?
Paternity leave?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, did you kind of how important is it, basically, like from your own kind of personal experience, having taken paternity leave and, you know, like spending those first couple of months or however long it is there, like, you know, like how important is it, basically?
It's critically important because I mean, okay, so assuming that you have a two-parent household, right? So the first thing I should say is maternity/paternity leave in Canada is 1 year.
Yeah.
And you can split that equally if you want. So, you know, so the father can take, do 6 and 6. And it's critically important because, and now my daughter's grown now, she's 24 years old. But it's critically important that you have that time because and I think, and this will set, I'm not sure this is going to come across the right way or the wrong way, but in a lot of ways, the father's kind of behind the gun when it comes to relationship forming, because they don't have the capacity to breastfeed, for example. So you don't get those same types of bonds. They just don't form. And so, and now the mother can pump breast milk, and the dads can certainly feed, but in my opinion, it's not the same thing. And so it is important to form those bonds that will hopefully last a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many different reasons why this is such, like, an important thing. Like, in Ireland, it is 6 months for 6 months for the maternity leave. I'm not actually 100% sure how long the fathers can take. I'm not 100% sure on it, but I think I don't know if it's the same. I think it might be 3 months. I'm not 100%, but it isn't a year. But there are other countries like that are where in Canada, as you've said, you have a year. In Norway, someone in chat is saying that they have 4 months. I think it's in Sweden where you have, is it like 460 days? It's literally more than a year.
Yeah.
That you have. So like it's there's so like that's kind of where it exists and where it is currently right now, and I think that it does deserve a place in the States because of just how important it is. And as Michael has said, that like men cis men can't breastfeed, can't like they can't give birth, they so like they don't have those kind of very initial, very powerful kind of forms of bond like with the child. So like getting those back is pretty fucking important.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things also that's interesting is why I this is not at all controversial. Except in places, sadly, like the United States, that just see it as the evils of socialism, unable to understand the nuance between socialism and other things. I would be really interested to sit down and hear opponents to this try to level any type of intelligent argument as to why it's not a good thing.
Yeah, but because, well, the only thing that that's kind of what I was going around saying. It was one of the things that Tucker Carlson and a lot of other people like him had kind of said on this issue. They had kind of like insinuated that it wasn't manly to take time off work to spend with your children. Now, Tucker Carlson said it specifically with reference to Pete Buttigieg, who I don't like. I don't like his policies. I'm sure he's a lovely person. I'm sure he's a sound guy, and if you were to go out drinking with him, I'm sure you would have good times. But he served in the military. I'm pretty sure he was in the Navy. And Tucker Carlson was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and a silver stick up his ass. He is literally a trust fund baby who has had absolutely everything handed to him, who has dodged the draft, or at least hasn't signed up. Who the fuck is he to talk? And now I'm talking about stereotypical kind of, modes of masculinity, which is what he was talking about. That's why I'm kind of bringing this up. But who the fuck is he to talk about who isn't manly when
Tucker Carlson's financial security is based on Swanson frozen dinners.
But yeah, his mother is like the heiress to that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like, again, as I said, silver spoon in his mouth and silver stick up his ass. He's never had to work for anything in his life. He was handed a fucking journalism career. He went for like a semester of fucking college and then dropped out, and then just because of who the fuck he is, he put on a bow tie and went on TV, and now he's the most watched person on Fox News TV, which, I mean, Oh God! If that doesn't tell you exactly what the fuck is wrong with America, I don't know what does. But
Yeah, but
if
that's
it was
like being the least
right,
smelly person.
yeah,
if it was an individual with talent who had just kind of bypassed college and became some kind of media gadfly, but they had something to offer, they had insight or any of this other kind of stuff, I would be like, you know what, salute, more power to you. But Tucker Carlson has just been, he's something that, like, is, for the longest I can remember, he's just a whiteboard that conservative movements end up sketching their ideas on. So now he happens to be sort of like, his show happens to present, sort of, for whatever reason, socially acceptable white supremacy talking points. But like, there are a lot of white supremacists that love watching Tucker Carlson. And they like the cut of his jib, they like the syntax, they like the implications, they like that kind of stuff. He's been doing that for at least 2 decades now. He's a grifter.
yeah.
I also don't think I would shout too high from I wasn't aware of the whole Swanson dinner thing, but that's it's like I wouldn't shout that too high from the rooftops. That's where money came from. Quite literally the garbage food aisle in the supermarket, right? Yeah, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, people in glass houses, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, but Carlson's never really been, he doesn't really care. And he came up, one of the problems with him is that he came up in the 90s. And in the 90s, the way he ended up kind of like hitching his way around things between talk show appearances and then eventually getting like a co-hosting spot on Crossfire was to then kind of parlay that into kind of a failed attempt at having like a mid-afternoon show on either Fox or CNN or whatever it was. It didn't go anywhere. Like, he was basically, he's basically left for dead. But cable news works in a lot of the same ways that, YouTube viewers, clicks and stuff work. And when he was able to kind of conform himself into this kind of like, patron saint of, right-wing grievance, the persecuted Trump fan kind of thing. He's kind of reinvented himself, and he's benefiting from it.
Yeah, it is interesting how they how he's managed to twist this, as being a member of the most privileged group that exists into somehow, being downtrodden is funny.
Right. Yeah, because he's being oppressed. At least he's not being allowed to speak, and he should be allowed to speak because, oh boy, we need to listen to what this guy has to say because he knows how it's supposed to work. But the weird thing is, like, when you hear him, with a take on something like Pete Buttigieg and paternal leave and his husband, that's the sort of the question that I asked Stephen at the beginning. Like, okay, well, they adopted a couple of kids with Tucker Carlson. Rather, those kids had been aborted, didn't be adopted by gay parents. Like, I'm just wondering, like, how deep are his conservative convictions on this kind of stuff? Like, let's do a litmus test on his convictions. My guess is no. I would also probably say that Tucker Carlson is probably pro-abortion. Not, and by that I don't mean like he thinks that it's okay for women to choose. I mean, he thinks that the fact that abortion exists is a good thing.
You think he'd admit that?
He would never admit it.
Yeah.
My guess is he's thankful that it's still there in society. And you know what? I think most of these conservative types are. And they're wondering what's going to happen if the culture war in the United States shifts and there is some kind of weird overturn and abortion ends up becoming this legal quagmire again. If you're rich enough, you don't have to worry about it. And Tucker Carlson is going to continue to do this whole kind of like, I'm above it all kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't bother me. Of course it doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother you at all. You can afford to be a hypocrite.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like with the current heartbeat bill that's going on in Texas, right? And the people that are, marginalized segments of society that don't have the capacity to, it's like, well, they close down all these things and they make it, they put all these crazy laws in place. Right. Well, if you're just rich enough or just privileged enough, to have, a car and a little bit of money in the bank, you can go across state lines, things like that. But the people who are particularly impoverished can't even do that.
Sorry to break into that, but I mean, the funny thing about the Texas law is that it literally sicks the hoi polloi against the hoi polloi. That's the funniest thing about it. It's like, if you look at that bill, it looks like something written by elitists, like, oh, the state's not going to say that you can't have an abortion. I mean, we're going to decree it, that it's not a good thing, but we're not going to enforce it. No, what we're going to do is we're going to say that any citizen that has a problem with you having an abortion after a set amount of time gets to sue the person that actually has the gall to defy our proclamation. Like, what kind of crazy ass purge level nonsense is this shit? Like, this is the kind of, nonsense that you would expect out of like an inbred monarchy. And Texas is making it, so they're proud of themselves for having developed this as some kind of, legal maneuver around legislative, the legislative bureaucracy. It's like, well, okay, so the Supreme Court actually cited that the right to choose is a constitutional right. That's the one thing that a lot of these ding-dongs don't seem to understand. The way the Supreme Court ended up deciding that, they interpreted that the Constitution preserves the right for a woman to seek termination of pregnancy in consultation with her, with a doctor. Mm-hmm. And so now they're just like, okay, well, we're not going to step on that. What we're going to do is we're going to actually provide monetary incentives to private citizens who are willing to step on that. And to me, that's crazy.
Yeah,
and it's irresponsible.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, they will be passively against abortion until their mistress becomes pregnant, and then they're all for it. But look,
exactly.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, how many abortions do you think Trump paid for? Come on.
Oh, come on. 100%. Like, yeah, at least a few. There's a few in there.
And how many for his sons?
Well, yeah. I'm sure a couple of Melania's best friends.
And maybe even his daughter.
I mean,
I'm not trying to say anything. I'm not casting aspersions.
We're not,
I'm saying, that they need to
allegedly and all that. We're not saying, but he has talked about wanting to fuck her an uncomfortable amount of times. To be fair, an uncomfortable amount of times by talking about wanting to fuck your daughter is once, and he's done it more than that. But even,
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me was when he said he was on some talk show, and I'm sure you can find the sound clip somewhere where he said something, like, paraphrase, like, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd probably be dating her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, come on. Yeah. Like, that's creepy, man. That's like, that's not good. Like, that's really not. It's not a good look.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, though, if you asked him to cite the things that he's attracted about, why would she be somebody that you'd be dating if you weren't related to her? And like 6 of those reasons have something to do with the fact that she has those quote good genes that he's got.
Right.
So it's like, no, if you weren't related to her, you wouldn't be dating her.
Yeah, it's like, how much more narcissistic can you get than that?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, every time I could clone and date myself, I'd do that.
If I could clone myself, I'd probably annoy the shit out of myself.
Oh yeah. If I could do that, there'd be a homicide in just outside Toronto.
Yeah. I'd realize, like, God, you spend a lot of time on YouTube. You're a jerk.
Yeah, I said to Shannon just before I came upstairs, I'm gonna go jump on Steven's stream for a little while. She's like, and then you're doing the talk later. I'm like, yeah. She's like, cool, I'll read a book. She didn't care.
That's good. That's nice.
It is good. Yeah. Anyway,
it's nice to be missed.
Yeah.
Okay, in that sense, no, it's left.
Oh no, I'm just messing around. I'm so ridiculously happily married. It's sickening.
Yeah. Fuck you. Anyway. Anyway, yeah. So. But yeah, look, yes, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, there's so many reasons to have paternity leave, though, and not the least of which is what if a woman has a C-section and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
uncomfortable for her to move for the first 2 weeks? Like, come on, like, you expect her to be at home, not able to move, just listening to a fucking dying baby in the next room because it hasn't been fed in a couple of it, like, seriously. And like, not everybody is unfortunate enough to have, is fortunate enough to have, a parent or a grandparent that is free and that is able to essentially move into the home for the first couple of weeks to be able to take care of the child. Not everybody is in that kind of a situation. Not everybody is financially stable enough to be able to give the child to a nanny or a nursery or something like that. Aside from the fact you're not going to want to anyway, the baby's just fucking born. You're going to want to spend every waking minute that you have with it. So there's all of those reasons. There's, I mean, like, oh my god, like the list is almost endless to why you would want to have at least one parent in the home, and there's a lot of those reasons why, unfortunately a lot of women suffer kind of like medical complications afterwards. There's C-sections, as I have just said, which literally involves like it's a wound. There's like stitches, and it's painful and it's uncomfortable and stuff like that. And so like they're not able to be freely able just to take care of it. There's so many reasons why you need more than one body in the home with a newborn.
I got an even better one, Stephen.
Yeah.
So exceedingly personal in our family. I've talked about this before. I don't hide it at all. If I had my wife's salary, I'd burn mine. She makes way more than I do, and so there are some situations where it is fiscally easier for me to stay home.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that ability, then we would actually move into not financial hardship. Like we'd be fine if that were the case. But I could imagine there are some cases where you'd have to live closer to the bone and so you can even complicate it further. So if it's the mother who had to have a C-section and she's the majority breadwinner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you can further complicate these, with a couple of different scenarios. Like in our personal situation, and we tried, my current wife and I tried for many years to have children unsuccessfully, and now we have a dog. And so my daughter is from my first marriage, but it would have been if that would have been now, not with the first marriage, that we would have had more financial hardship. Because my wife makes more than I do, and that's something that, like, I'm secure enough in myself. I don't give a shit. I've tell anybody, it's like I am a kept man, and I'm happy about it. And I say that jokingly, but it's that's another situation that can throw a wrench into things. Like, well, how do we make ends meet? You make more, and you have to stay home because you're still healing from your wounds of pushing a watermelon out.
Yeah, well, so there's that, but I mean, like, I think, like, okay. So I personally think that feminists should be all over this. They should be 100% fighting for this. And there's a very specific reason for why. Because it is just a fact of reality that unfortunately quite a lot of employers, if they are sitting down with a potential employee who is of a certain age range, they're less likely to hire them because they're thinking, well, they might have kids in the future, and if they do, then we're going to have to pay them whilst they're not here for however long it is. If you have legalized leave for the fathers as well, then if you have if you have somebody who is male and who is female applying for the same job, if you're now thinking, okay, well, she might get pregnant and have to leave, but he might also be with somebody who then gets pregnant and then he has to leave as well. So there's not as much of an incentive for them to hire men over women if both of them have to leave the home at some point legally because they have a child. Like, there's so many different avenues and different angles that you can go at this from, and I think that's 100% one of them. aside from the fact that, like, I mean, we're not living in the fucking 1800s anymore, man. Like, men want to bond with their kids. Like, it's something that, like, men want to do. I don't have any, but if I did, like, if I had the opportunity to take, and as I said at the start, I think it's 4 months here. If I could take 4 months off of work so that I could not only bond with my child, but also help my partner who's just gone through this, who, like, might be kind of struggling, who might be, you know, run down, who might, like, all of these different things, would I take that? Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
or who may just want to get out of from those four walls for a while, right? You know,
yeah,
like they have to spend this period of time for healing and all these other things and stuff. And it's like, now, you know, I want to get the fuck out of here for a while. I would rather go back to work.
yeah,
You know, maybe I'm good at my job and I love my job and I want to do my job. Have at it. Yeah, that's a really good argument. And if anyone who's looking for or a proponent of equality in that way should jump all over this.
yeah, no, yeah, 100%. It's just, well, yeah. I mean, it is an area where there's somewhat of, and you know, where they're not, where, like, everyone is not equal in that sense. You know, I mean, look, I get why traditionally mothers have, you know, left their jobs to take care of their kids, but I mean, how many other Michaels are there out there where like, your partner is the primary breadwinner in the household, where, you know what I mean, so, like, these kind of situations, they exist all over the place. Like, it's just, you know what I mean, like, there can be, like, serious medical complications, you can have C-section, there's so many reasons why you would just need somebody else there, aside from the opportunity for men to bond with their kids. And I mean, the people who are kind of arguing against this and saying, like, oh, that, like, it's not manly, like, okay, I'm sorry that your kids are gonna grow up to fucking despise you, but I don't want that for my kids. So, like, no, I'll take the few months off work, yeah, so I can bond with my kids, so that they'll actually like me when they're in their teenage years. Like, you know, come on, like.
Yeah, it can also be things like postpartum depression,
Yes.
gestational diabetes, which does go away shortly after childbirth, but can still be a health factor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe high blood pressure, maybe, you know, who knows? There can be all kinds of other problems. Like, it's having, like, when a woman has a child, like, there are lots of risks inherent with a woman becoming pregnant, and they don't always, you know, just necessarily clear up, you know, after she you know, spits the kid out. So it's there's lots of stuff. It's not something. And as far as the whole manly thing goes, anyone who would suggest something like that, um, I think they're likely just projecting more than anything else.
Yeah.
And that, you know, if they're not secure enough, okay. And someone could say to me, like, someone will hear this and say, oh, you know, you're a slave to your wife or something like that. I'd be like, yeah, you know, and I would make light of it and make a joke and say, yeah, you know, I married smart, you know, or something like that.
Well, you know, yeah. Look, it's just, yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. I just don't know why it's not a thing everywhere, and why it's not well, look, I mean, then again, like, Jeff, we're going to be kind of picking on your country here a little bit, but, like, you guys don't even have paid time off by law. You don't have, like, guaranteed holiday time. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? Like if we can have this in our tiny, and I mean minuscule, country of Ireland, 5 million people here. It's like our total population is smaller than fucking
New York City.
Yeah, and that's just one city of a state. Like, come on, it's like,
I'm gonna illustrate something. This is gonna be probably kind of offensive to anybody watching, so I just want to warn people. Did either of you, or and anybody else watching, have you seen Schindler's List?
yeah,
Yep.
So
For sure.
there's a scene in Schindler's List where Oscar Schindler, played by Liam Neeson, is telling Ray Fiennes' character, I forget his name, but he's just a monster, right? He just shows up and just brutalizes people, murders people just to do it. And at one point, that character is asking Oscar Schindler, like, how do you do it? How do you get people to like you? And that was one of the things that Schindler was good at. He was able to kind of wine and dine people and make friends and make connections. And Schindler kind of makes this basic suggestion to Ray Fiennes' character, and that is, like, if somebody violates a rule, breaks a law or whatever, you could kill them, you could have them beaten, or you could be magnanimous and pardon them. And Ray Fiennes' character, who is drunk at the time, is like, "Oh, I pardon you," and he attempts to do this for a little bit, and then he fails miserably.
He calls
it
him
seems like
Amun the Good. He calls him.
Amun, yeah. What was his last name? Amun
Goth.
Yeah, good.
Goth.
Yeah, Goth. But he's like, yeah, Amun the Good, and it doesn't work out for him. I feel like late stage capitalism has gotten to that kind of point where, in some countries they're able to recognize that, people need time off so that they can spend time with their kids. That was sort of the whole point. You have more productive workers if they get vacation time and they get to go to, like, for somebody like Tucker Carlson, who's making fun of, like, Pete Buttigieg for taking time off for parental leave, paternity leave. That's like, okay, well, is it emasculating if he takes time off to take his kids up to the lake on Labor Day or on Memorial Day?
Yeah.
Like, exactly at what point do you draw the line? Is this person supposed to be slaving away 80 hours a week, and anything less is he's an emasculated wuss? Like, where do you draw that line? And this is one of the schizophrenic aspects of capitalism in the United States, is that nobody knows where that identity actually exists. It used to be a function of American capitalism, that the idea that you had a 40-hour work week, that you had vacation time, that you had holiday leave and and holiday bonuses and all this kind of stuff. These were things that made you a more productive employee, and these were things that were going to benefit you going down. And that was good capitalism, in a sense. Now all of a sudden it's just turned into a complete and total shit show. And so the Amons have won out over the Oscar Schindlers. Oscar Schindler had a way of maintaining the chaos of that by, kind of like, putting some comfortable cushions on the sharper corners of things. And then there's always somebody that's like, no, fuck it. Let's just go full speed all the way. No safeties, no seat belts, all gas, no brakes, that kind of crap. And I think that's where the United States is that culturally it's sort of stuck in this idea that if it embraces the idea of all gas, no brakes, it's going to win more and win faster. It's sort of an idiocracy kind of take on things.
Yeah, they forget the way Joe Elliott from Def Leppard said, "Slow and steady never lost the race."
Mm-hmm.
I'm dating myself there.
No, but that's good. I mean, for whatever reason, the United States has essentially abandoned it's weird. It's abandoned folk wisdom and sort of embraced a kind of like paranoid cult wisdom of just methamphetamine, success or, victory or death kind of crap amongst about 34% of the population. And the rest of the country either doesn't care or just wants something that works. So.
Yeah, but does it work? And that's what's interesting.
No, because
does it work?
No, yeah, no. In the end, we can't get anything that does work because the stuff that takes up the bulk of our time are the idiots that are shouting victory or death or all or nothing. It's either you're the winner or second place is the first loser. Like, it's really kind of weird since the Ricky Bobby kind of Talladega Nights idea of, you either win the race or second place is the first loser kind of mentality. That stuff was sort of exaggerated by the whole George W. Bush era, like America's attitude about going to war in the Middle East and like every theater that it could insert itself in. And yet, for whatever reason, the Trump presidency kind of revealed that attitude amongst people still kind of exists, at least in terms of like kind of reinventing the country, at least in a kind of a culture war thing. Like a lot of them are probably not like how would you say it? Like they're not culture. Well, not they're not trying to actually invade countries, right? They'd be like, with Trump. Trump is sort of anti-war as far as they're concerned, but that hasn't stopped them from trying to do to make these major plays at trying to reinvent society as a whole. And a lot of it is just coming from people that feel like they've been crapped on and insulted because they're low class, low educated, and don't know what they're talking about. And usually that's been accurate, because when they get the opportunity to take the mic and like give an opportunity to say what would you do instead, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they would do. So the U.S. is a basket case.
I just don't know how much disagreement you're going to get from Stephen and I.
Yeah.
I have dear friends in the U.S., in Pennsylvania, in Kansas City, and other places, and I don't know how. I just don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it, surviving in a place that seems to be. And I think Jefferson, I think your analogy was so spot on. Just all gas, just balls to the wall, and it's It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think from a working perspective and stuff like this, one of the downfalls. I personally, I think one of the downfalls is the loss of so many labor unions. Like I am, I don't have any problem saying I'm a democratic socialist, leading sometimes even more towards socialism.
How dare you, sir? There's an American here. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I myself am a socialist. Yeah.
And it's and you hear people talk about that. And again, like I mentioned before, towards nuance and stuff like that. But labor unions, like I'm a sworn public servant, and most public servants in Canada are members of labor unions. And there is that. All those things all those things that you mentioned before, like that the idea that you work 40 hours a week, that you have paid time off, the fact that, if I'm sick, I still get paid the same amount, and things like that. And I don't have to worry about, if I miss work, can I pay my bills? And I know that I get, vacation time every year and all these different things. These are not radical ideas. They're old ideas that became vilified.
Yeah.
I would say if you want a great example, I think the best example out of a movie that I could give, and I apologize if anybody's picking up my background noise. If you want to watch a movie that I think kind of encapsulates what the United States is going through right now, watch Jaws, the movie Jaws, the second half, when it's Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw and Dreyfuss. Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
Watch that movie. That's a pretty good example of what I think happens. That's the internal kind of intellectual conflict that's happening in the United States. You have the sort of knowledgeable, cautious, intellectual, maybe an elitist. Then you have that's Dreyfuss. Then you have the guy that's kind of in the middle, the kind of common man, kind of like also kind of cautious, a little bit pragmatic, trying to figure out what's the best approach to do. And then you have the sort of like grizzled, experienced guy that just is basically counting on years of experience and inertia to get him through. And that's the U.S. That tension between those three classes on that boat, that's the U.S. in perpetuity.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to echo what Michael had said. I have dear friends who are in the US. My girlfriend is from the US. So it's like, yeah, like to kind of steal Jeff's point there. I saw it on a stream where someone said this was while ago, where someone said that the only modern, technically first world country that the show Breaking Bad can realistically take place in is the United States. Because think about what happened there. He got a cancer diagnosis. He couldn't afford his treatment, and so he started making meth, and so that he could pay for his cancer treatment. That's what, and the show kind of goes from there, obviously. But that's the initial premise of that show. If that was to take place in Ireland, if that was to take place in Canada, he wouldn't start he wouldn't start making meth. He'd just get his healthcare for free. He'd have his cancer treatment paid for. It's not.
He'd have a paid leave of absence from work, and he'd get better.
Yeah. It could not exist anywhere else. But I also saw Vosh talking about this. It was only a couple of days ago on one of his streams, where and this is a much more recent or up to date kind of comparison show wise. It's kind of a sad state of affairs to say that if the concept of the Netflix show Squid Game, which I hope everybody has seen, if not, fucking watch it, it's fantastic. But the basic concept of that show, if that was to actually be legally able to be brought to the United States, we all know, is it that unrealistic to say that it wouldn't actually be a success? Are we all familiar with the basic premise of the show Squid Game, by the way? Yeah.
I am.
Okay. Just in case there's anybody who's watching this back or who is in live chat right now who doesn't understand, I'm gonna say it without spoiling it. I'll try and keep to basically the Netflix description. Basically, extraordinarily poor individuals compete in a set of deadly games, and the winner gets a fuck ton of money. That's kind of basically.
As a point of clarification, and this might be a little semantic because this is actually, it's true for South Korean culture. It was something that was happening the last time I was there, and it's only gotten worse since, I've kind of lost contact with friends there. It's not just people that are impoverished. It's specifically about debt.
Yeah.
And the way that South Korea treats debt as sort of this unforgivable sin. And that's what I think the show really kind of gets at. The weird thing about South Korean society is that they have part of their society they're hyper capitalistic in a lot of ways. But one of the things that they also have is they have a blooming Christian/Baptist kind of thing in their group, and that seems to feed on these ideas that I don't know if it's a might makes right or money means we're honey kind of thing or whatever, but they sort of look at that. It's not a prosperity gospel thing per se, but there's something to the mindset of a lot of South Koreans that if you're in debt, it's your fault and you're a bad person and you deserve to be in debt kind of thing. And South Korea has been struggling with that stigma for a long time because they've been trying to figure out ways to do things like debt forgiveness and stuff because they've had skyrocketing, cost of life issues happening. People aren't making as much money. People are turning to less than reputable lenders, and then they're getting taken advantage of. And so that kind of hyper-capitalist kind of thing that's happening in the show, and that's actually happening in South Korea in real life, is kind of fuels that. So the most like the show sort of exacerbates the monstrosity of we're going to take these steps and have these people come in and do these weird games and subject them to these crazy penalties if they fail. And it's that's not, it's only a slight exaggeration on what's actually happening, because the one thing that could happen is you could have better bankruptcy rules and things like that and better protections. They're not going to do that. That's one thing that they're not going to do because their legislature, their particular government doesn't want that stuff to happen. They want to make sure that people can get into this kind of trouble.
Yeah, but what's
So-
interesting about the differences between the two is that in the same way with what Steven said, if somebody, like if Heisenberg, I forget his character name now, Bryan Cranston, had gotten cancer in Canada or Ireland, takes paid leave, gets better, right? I think I think it's probably fair to say that a good number of people live beyond their means. I probably live a little beyond my means sometimes. I probably spend a little bit too much money. Steven's got his PS5 in the background. He knows what it's like. But
once a stream, you have to bring up the fucking PS5
because it's so funny. But what would be interesting is if something like Squid Game was actually done in the U.S. and like when the people were in the back, like in the sleeping quarters talking about it. Oh, how much did you owe? How much did you owe? Oh, yeah. Or like, why are you here? Why are you here? One person, like if it was in the U.S., one person would be like, oh, well, I got cancer and so I lost my house and went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or the interest on my medical bills was too much, and I tried to file for bankruptcy and they told me that it wasn't a valid reason, so I just spiraled and now I'm here. It's fucking crazy.
Or in the United States, if they did one, I'd be like, well, I started owing $28,000 of my student loans, and then after years of being jobless and going through different recessions and stuff like that, now the interest is spiked to $84,000, and now I'll never be able to pay it off. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. There are I don't pretend to understand all the ins and outs of how different economies work and stuff like that. I just I only play an economist on TV sometimes, so it's not something I pretend to understand. But it just seems like it is so clear, like to everybody on the outside. It's like the fishbowl, right? Like we're everybody else is on the outside of the fishbowl looking in to the US. And it's like, this is so simple, man. Like it's so simple. It's like when you actually point out and you can back up statistically that the cost per capita is actually lower when you have universal health care and all these other things. I mean, we pay the fuck out of taxes. Like we pay the fuck out of taxes. But like both my wife and I are in like the 46% tax bracket. Which is a lot, but I'm never going to lose my house if I get sick.
Yeah.
Right. That's just not going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing, you bring up a good point, because one of the problems that usually pops up is that there was a guy that did a documentary on different health services and stuff. And he had studied Japan's, Taiwan's, a variety of other ones, Swiss. And it was interesting that he brought this up at a weird time. I had read his book about Japan back in the 90s. And then later on read this book that he did on kind of like nationalized and socialized medicine systems. And he basically came to the conclusion that the United States has all four systems in place, that we have a national system, we have a single payer system, we have a bunch of private systems. We just have this weird, calico blanket, just kind of clusterfuck of different systems, and it's loaded with inefficiencies. And part of the problem that comes up when trying to craft anything in the United States to like benefit everybody in the United States is who to punish. And I blame this on the fact that so many Americans are Christian. It's one of the reasons that I ended up becoming an atheist. Americans have a hard time acknowledging a social welfare system that just benefits people. It doesn't hurt them. And what they want, a lot of people want this. And if you talk to Trump supporters, they desire this. They want a system that's put in place that will hurt people for doing things the wrong way or for believing the wrong thing. And that's a problem. America has a real hard time with that. If you can create a secular system in which it's divorced from this idea of deserve and not deserve, it's simply providing people the necessities in order for them to participate in civil life, buying groceries, putting their vote in, getting their mail, communicating with their neighbors, whatever. That's not enough for a lot of the people that I've talked to.
And half
They
of the
want
stuff
those.
you just mentioned are socialized things.
They want those people hurt. They need to be hurt. They need to be ostracized. They need to be crippled. You need to take them out and drag them out and curb kick them. Take the front teeth out. That's how a lot of Americans are. The Purge movies are not fiction. They're only fiction in the fact that they have not happened yet. America is a place that is brimming with a fever for punishing people. They want a reckoning. They want people to burn.
Yeah.
And it's a powder keg. And Trump has been, as far as I can tell, has been a way for people to kind of let off steam in a little bit. But what's coming next is going to be much, much worse.
Yeah, he normalized hatred in a special kind of way. It's interesting. And one of the things that I find fascinating is when you look at stuff like some of the different kind of catchphrases that the U.S. use, like, or some in the U.S. use, like "Don't tread on me," and we were. But one of the new ones is from the Constitution, where it says we recognize we were all created equal and stuff like that. Well, then how would that not carry through? Like, why would you then want to
Right.
to install these different classes? Like, don't you? And then the funny part is how religion ends up in, it ends up coming in every part of my conversation, but how religion creeps into this. And if you're this Christian, we have brotherly love and everything, wouldn't you want to say, like, I'm prepared, like, I will gladly pay my fair share so that these people who have less than me can be taken care of, because I'm fortunate, or I'm this, that, and the other thing. Like, I don't want to see these other people, sick or overly impoverished and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It seems like this very weird, hypocritical stance to have.
Well, the way that they end up doing that is that there's a virtue ethic built into that, right? Where the bureaucrat shows up and is like, hey, we've got a mechanism for, you just pay extra taxes or do whatever, and then we can make sure it gets funneled to the poor, right? And then you find out, all these bureaucratic fat cats or whatever are making all this crazy ass money on the back of your pity. Like, the last thing that you should have done is told them that you cared about these people that were lower class, And it's one of the best things that I apologize, because it's one of those things that happens in conservative dogma that I remember when I was younger and I was in the conservative movement. Conservatives would do this kind of stuff all the time. They'd turn this kind of trick. Like, oh yeah, I can get you to, like, pay higher taxes, but you know what? I'm going to mismanage those taxes to death. Like, that's not how it works. That's not the point. The idea that you could be taxed a certain amount that's going to, like, drift down because the administration pays out benefits to help people or do whatever. These people, no, that's not what it's going to do. It's going to pay for these undeserving people, these people that don't want to work, these people that never gave it. They never gave an effort. That's the stuff that's always bothered me. And it still persists now. The conservative movement runs on stuff like that, mostly because, and I'm going to repeat this, conservatives want bad people punished. People need to be punished. Just like Darth Dawkins says, just like...
Hey, no swearing on Steven's stream.
Oh, sorry, but there's a bunch of Christian, users out there that talk about this kind of stuff. This is what they want. They want people hurt, and not only that, they want to hear their hurt. They want to hear their suffering. They relish it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I say no swearing very tongue in cheek, of course. I've been consuming. Jefferson, I've been consuming a lot of your content, probably at an unhealthy. Probably at an unhealthy level.
I apologize in
No,
advance.
it's fine. Probably an unhealthy level for a little while. And you said something actually not too long ago where you were talking about his maniacal laugh and things like that, and how he talks about, you know, watching these police shows and stuff like that. And it was just like, wow, fuck, like you are, and you can hear it. You can hear it in the interactions, stuff like that. And it may not be a big stretch, but if he is representative of, you know, Joe or Jane Q conservative, then you're 10 million fucking % right. Because if there's a human being alive who wants to see someone punished, it's that prick.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Anybody that watches somebody like a Darth Dawkins or relates to him, or kind of sidles up to that kind of stuff, that's the kind of person that we have to be, you know, wary of. And what bothers me about that kind of mentality is that they're not looking to elect people to represent, you know, the majority. They don't want to like vote in people that are going to make things better or manage things efficiently. They want to vote in people that are team members that are going to go after the people that they've been told to hate and fuck them up. And that's not a good thing, especially since the majority of these individuals are not, they're not very intelligent. And I'm not saying that as in some kind of snobby way. They've demonstrated that they're not very intelligent. They'll get a claim from somebody like a Darth Dawkins or a Praise I Am or a Jill, you know, Jesus is Lord or something like that, and they'll just sort of take it like, oh, really? Is that what's going on? Oh my God, I'll vote for the next Republican the night I die. Like, don't do that. Like they don't know what they're doing, and the fact that so much of this stuff has ended up the idea of the administration of the government has been conflated with this idea that the government is in some kind of position to prosecute a holy war against the spiritually spiritually damned or irreconcilable or whatever is really weird to me, but they're doing that. So
I recommend, and you did this a little bit. I think actually something I was it just yesterday or just today, when you talk about the government prosecuting and talking about government with the holy war, your talk on your stream about Jeff Durbin was fucking priceless.
I hate that guy.
I've had it in for that twit for a while.
But I can see why.
Ever since I watched a debate with he and Saitem Bruggencate and one other gentleman against 3 other atheists, and it was held at a church. And the pomposity displayed by that individual is
Redbeard.
Yeah, Redbeard is just unbelievable.
Yeah, he's quite the prize.
Yeah, we had Dean and I had Saitem Bruggencate in the studio in my house 2.5, 3 years ago, because he's Canadian, and so we were going to have a talk, and so he said, you know, I'll come to you or you come to me, and so he came here, and you know, I disagree with him wholeheartedly. I think he's wrong. I think he's delusional, but I was able to be in the same room with him, and we could talk and stuff like that. I would poke Jeff Durbin in the eye. I'd just be like, you're a prick. Like, you're just a prick. Anyway, sorry for derailing the conversation.
You're okay. You're okay.
No.
No, look, I mean, like the last kind of like main thing we were talking about was capitalism, and I've been kind of wanting to go on a rant now for a little while, and I don't know whether any of like you two noticed, but I've been smoking a joint for the last 15 minutes, so I'm kind of stoned as fuck right now. But anyway, it's not just gonna be a rant. It's gonna be a high rant. I just can't fathom, or like, I just can't wrap my head around this idea that people actually still support like full-blown capitalism anymore. Like, I just don't. I just can't understand why people want to do this. Like, how can you support a system, like, if you look at the US, right, where you can have a select few people who are so rich that just because they want to, just for fun, for like an afternoon, they can just decide to take a quick trip into space. and yet you have all of these people who are living on the street, who don't have anything, who are dirt fucking poor, who can't afford their bills. They're deciding between keeping the lights on and feeding their children tonight. Like, how, like, just the fact that coexists in the exact same country, and yet you have people who will proudly say that it's the greatest country on earth. I'm sorry, it's fucking not. It is absolutely ridiculous. There is no way that one person, one single human being, can have as much wealth as a couple of fucking, you know, first world and developed fucking European countries, that they can have like more wealth than their GDP combined. It's like, how can you tolerate that? Like how can you look at this and think this is fucking normal? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's insane. How could, like, just the fact that you have one person who is alive today who their great grandson will never have to work a day in their lives, every single person in that chain, and their money still won't have even halfway run out, is absolutely, like, how can you? It's just insane. I could just rant on that. Like, obviously, you know, debates on this issue are more nuanced than that, and they have more of a point than that, but just that in and of itself, the fact that can coexist in the same country and people think it's normal, it's not fucking normal. This is insane. You know, like, we're not perfect here, and it's not perfect in Canada either. We have homeless people here. There are homeless people in Canada, and it's like, you know, it is a severe issue, which can be tackled, you know what I mean, like, separately. But just the fact that, like, we don't have people who can just decide to go into space on a whim here. Like, we don't have that level of wealth. It's not that we don't have rich people in this country. Of course we do. But just the fact that there is like an emphasis on, like, people in government who are saying, yeah, you know, we'd like to tackle homelessness, we'd like to do all this because of course we would, because of course anybody would, but, you know, we just don't really know if it's fiscally responsible, and, you know, we've spent a lot this year, and there was an increase in the military, which was kind of expensive and all this. Like, how can you have that and also all of these, like just how can whether or not, like, a country can afford it even come into the conversation when you're talking about people who are living on the streets, who are starving on the streets, who are dying on the streets? When you're talking about that, how the fuck? And just by the way, the people who are the most likely to say, well, yeah, we'd like to do something about this, but, you know, fiscal responsibility, apart from if it's for the military, then it's just fucking blank checks all day long. But when you're talking about actually giving back to people, when they talk about, oh no, but we can't have this because it's going to cost too much, isn't it very, very odd that the exact same crossover, it's not even like a like fucking Venn diagram, it's just a circle in bold, where of the people who will say that, who will also then unironically call themselves pro-life. You cannot be pro-life if you have absolutely no issues, if you are not desperately trying to do everything in your fucking power to end the fact that people don't have a home. It's just, oh my god, I could literally rant for days on this issue. It's just incredible.
Yeah, we've talked about, you and I, Stephen, have talked about that a lot, like the difference between pro-life versus pro-birth. And it's interesting because you have these, like, and again, Canada's not perfect for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There are places not too far away from me where there's a homeless population, and it's gross. My wife and I do what we can, donating to different charities and try to do local charities to have greater local impact. But I mean, you said something really important, that there's, and just, I'm going to space today. Right. Which is just, you could take someone like the Walmart family, Jeff Bezos, these different types of people. And you could just say, how much does Jeff Bezos have? Like $100 billion or something like that? I have no idea. Let's just say it's $100 billion. Just pick a number. When you have that much money, like, he's not living any better than if he had $50 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You could quite literally say take half of that money, and you could take a section and say, okay, I'm going to draw, 100-kilometer radius, and within that 100-kilometer radius, I'm going to give everybody $250,000.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ensure that, plus I'm going to make sure that all their debt is eliminated. I'm going to build a bunch of I'm going to build segments of low income housing, everything's like that. You wouldn't even touch that $50 billion. Like, you wouldn't even spend that much.
Yeah.
And that person would still be, they still wouldn't have to worry about where their next meal was coming from, because when you have $50 billion, your money just makes money for itself. You don't have to do it. Is such a machine at that point. And you what you said was right about the grandson all the way down 20 generations would still be able to live off that $50 billion.
Yeah.
Because by then that 50 would have become 150.
Mhm.
Again, Jefferson just fell over. But yeah, like, it's just this unbelievable thing. And there are tax shelters, in Canada, but one of the biggest tax shelters in Canada is charitable giving, because charities are tax write-offs, and you can actually defer. Like, my wife has worked with very, very wealthy people that have given money to organizations that she has worked for. And they have the capacity to basically give a whole bunch of money to have a real positive impact, like whether it's build a wing on a hospital or whatever it is. And they can spread out the tax savings over a number of years. But these people and the people that I'm referring to, they're professional philanthropists. So they have foundations where they have this metric fuck ton of money, and their job is they just give money away. Their money makes money, and they give it away. And if you had any degree or that type of degree of philanthropy in the US, even with these super hyper rich people, how much of an impact could that make? It's like, I think it's almost immeasurable.
Yeah, like I don't know. I just can't understand how everybody and their mother is not going, like, or sorry, no, I wasn't even going to say that. Sorry. What I was going to say was just the fact that you can have somebody who gets to $100 billion, as you had said, that was the number that you used. You could get someone that's after getting to that amount of wealth, and then be then have the people who it might actually end up benefiting from them going, well, yeah, but they worked hard for that money though, so don't cut it down to $50 billion. Keep it at $100 billion because they worked hard for it. It's like, you're literally like, okay, I know that most Republicans do this anyway, but you're literally fighting against your own best interests. Like, you're arguing against your own best interests. Like, if you're living in, and it isn't even like a poor, neighborhood or like district or anything. It doesn't even necessarily have to be that, but just, like your average, like lower middle class kind of district. Like, that money could end up going into your children's school. It could end up going into, revitalizing like certain like parks or like anything else like that, or investing in like a community center or like something to give like kids something to do after school. Like, it's going to end up benefiting you and your life, and you're arguing against it. And just like, again, if I start, I'm going to go on another fucking 10-minute rant, so just
and I think we need Jefferson's input on this. So, because from the outside looking in, it seems as though people who are in these unbelievably impoverished areas, like of the United States, who also vote Republican, don't understand that they're voting. I don't understand how they don't understand how they're voting against their best interests.
Yeah.
Because these are people who would directly benefit from socialized medicine, $2 a day childcare, whatever it is. Pick a socialized program and plug it into that spot. But because the Republican also says I'm pro-life, well, then they just vote a straight Republican ticket, and they don't realize that they've just shot themselves in the face.
Yeah. So the basic reason that a lot of this happens is because most of them end up voting against their own better interests. But let's give an example. Montana. Montana is reliably red in the conservative sense, right? The U.S. conservative sense. And the reason that it is because it doesn't have that many people in it, and the majority of people that vote for, politicians are going to vote for somebody. And the
You're a
Republican
little low
Party, because
again, Jeff. Sorry.
Hang on. How's that?
Yep, better.
Okay. So something like the Republican Party is going to represent them better because it's about, owning private land and being fiscally responsible and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that a lot of Democrats are not particularly good about is showing that one of the fiscally responsible things for the United States to do is to provide for things like Social Security for the elderly, to provide for some of the Medicare or Medicaid for the poor, because the externalities end up costing people on the outside a lot more. I can't really think of any other better examples of why this is it's kind of weird. In most cases, most synopsis, if they're going to give some kind of experiment, if you have an opportunity to provide for the majority of people in your community, especially the people that are at lower risk, you're going to end up achieving a greater success rate for the entire population going forward over the long term. If you end up trying to divide members of that population against each other in a competitive, quote unquote, capitalist kind of approach, you will end up creating a great deal of externalities in which some people generate an enormous amount of profits and gain those in perpetuity, and a great deal more gain nothing and just sort of languish. That's sort of the problem that a lot of these systems end up looking at.
That's interesting. It's one of the things that just popped into my head is kind of the difference between equity and equality. And I think it's a very nuanced difference, but like if you had, it's you have 10 people, you have $1, right? You're going to split it up between 10 people. Well, naturally everybody gets 10 cents, right? And that's, and that's equity. But creating equality to me means that, well, there are 4 people who need 15 cents. So 6 people, can actually, and they will be just fine, right? Or there's the even better analogy was a picture that I saw, basically with 3 people trying to look over the fence at a baseball game, and there were 3 crates, right? And so one person was tall enough to see over the fence without the crate. And when one person needed 1 crate to see over the fence and the other person needed 2 crates to see over the fence, now you've created equality. So and actually to create a level playing field, some people get less and some people get more. And that's better than saying, here, everybody gets 10 cents, fend for yourself. Look, you were all treated the same. It's not my fault that you can't make your life better. You were given the same as everybody else. That doesn't create a level playing field.
I guess I can give this this analogy a little bit better, because I think this is the way the conservative mind approaches it. So let's say that Stephen goes online and does a YouTube presentation. It attracts a certain amount of live views, and he gets a certain number of new subscriptions or whatever. He's just averaging that, and he's doing well. Stephen has a few people that show up on his shows. One of them is Jefferson Spatchcock, and the other one is Michael, the Canadian atheist, right? And you and I do not gather that, we don't really get that much more out of this, interaction than he does. So the way that they would figure it is that, okay, well, if we want to make this equitable, the way this should work is that when Stephen does great, he should be forced to share his success amongst JS, me, and Michael of Canadian Atheism, so that we all gain some subscribers. The idea behind most of the radical capitalist sense, it was like, no, Stephen should just gather as many as he can, and he doesn't have to worry about the fact that any of these other people that are hanging on him do anything at all. The interesting thing about this idea is that in most cases, the kind of radical capitalist sense is that the person with the most talent, or not even the most talent, just the most viewers, simply wins the most attention. They take it onto themselves. And anybody that helped or contributed either doesn't benefit or is reduced completely. That's sort of the weird thing that I think happens with kind of late stage capitalism. With early stage capitalism, Michael and I would benefit from the fact that we are in Stephen's wake. He and I are both talking to him, and some of his followers will end up following us instead, and they will, they'll spend some of their time when they're not looking to Stephen's channel. They'll talk to us too, and provide us with views. So we won't ever get as big as Stephen's channel, but we'll get decently large, proportionately large under that umbrella. What usually happens with conservative, a kind of conservative form of capitalism is that Michael and I will be eliminated, or at least we should be, if logic holds. It's a really weird system. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I always feel like I benefit just from seeing Stephen's beautiful face, but that's another story. He's high and eating cookies now or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm having a good time.
Yeah,
I'm benefiting from spending time on Steve's channel.
yeah. I don't even have a YouTube channel, man, so I get nothing out of this. I can barely handle doing a podcast. It's so tiring.
It's the effort of having to go on camera now, bringing it just.
Yeah, I gotta say, Michael, these seem like the complaints of somebody with a very wealthy wife. I just.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was all just made up. No.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all. Yeah, that was just story for the story.
Now I feel like an asshole. All right.
No, it's not. Yeah, I'm fucking around completely.
I know.
No, it's this whole. I do find it sometimes, and I've said to Stephen a couple of times, like I come close to like starting a YouTube channel. I'm like, man, but I'm lazy. Like I have the podcast thing that I do, and I'm lazy. And I generally, I have a face for podcasts, and I'm okay with that. I'm not as devilishly handsome as Stephen is. So. And Kevin, when Kevin gets on here, then I have to turn my camera off because Kevin is just in a different league, even other than Stephen. So it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping that I really trip Stephen out now because he's getting.
I mean, kind of, yeah, a little bit. Anyway, yeah.
I like Stephen's complimented plus getting super high face.
Yeah. So yeah,
I've seen your girlfriend, Stephen. Come on. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we'll move on to the other kind of topic of why we're here tonight, and it's the biggest one. It's oh Jesus Christ! It's everywhere. This story is everywhere. Everyone is talking about it. It's on all of the social media platforms.
Are we just getting to this now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right.
So during the shooting of an upcoming film that Alec Baldwin is doing, Rust is the name of the movie. A prop gun killed the cinematographer on that site. Her name was Helena Hutchins. I'm very, very sorry if I'm butchering the name. But yeah, and it injured the director. Now, I saw earlier that an update to that portion of the story is that the director is now out of hospital. He like is pretty much fine. But you know, a woman has lost her life because of this. And there's some people who this is a very hotly divided topic where people genuinely have their opinions either way. They will say that Alec Baldwin is at fault because he's the one who fired the gun. And there are other people who will say that no, that is the responsibility of the prop master, and Alec Baldwin was doing what he assumed was going to be a safe and risk-free thing, and then something happened, right?
Yep.
I fall onto the latter of that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I could, of course, and kind of make myself sound like even more kind of even more of a success than anyway, and say that I've worked on like a TV crew or like anything like that, or like a movie set or anything. I haven't. I could say that, but I haven't. I have, however, done years of work on stage and on acting and all of those sorts of things, from when I was 5 to when I was 20. And so I know it's not 100% the same, but it's a lot of the same kind of basic process. If something happens on stage with one of the props, they don't go, well, the prop was defective, but it's the actor's fault though because he was holding the prop. No, we go to the prop master and we say, you bought really, really shitty props, and or you didn't check that all of the props were okay before they were put out on stage, therefore it's your fault. It's pretty much the same thing, in that some people are blaming the actor, the person holding the prop, and other people are blaming the prop master. And it ultimately it has to be on the prop master, because they're the ones who are supposed to check each and every one of the guns every time before it's shot, that it's okay, that it's up to safety standard, etc., etc., etc. And he clearly didn't do that.
So there's some actually kind of weird legal issues going on here. One of them is, I do think that the way that this thing unfolded was an accidental shoot. But the problem for Alec Baldwin is that he's a producer on this film. And so some of the safety issues that were going into effect, because one of the things that came out was that on the same day this accidental shooting happened, several camera people left the set over deficiency in safety checks. And so Alec Baldwin continued to do things. That doesn't mean that he actually knew about this. This happened within the same day. So I think this is kind of a weird issue for him. This has got to be painful because he pulled the trigger on this device and it killed 2 people. The last time I heard about something like this was the actor that pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Brandon Lee for The Crow, and that fucked him up for a long time. He stayed out of the business forever. When I originally heard about this issue, I was like, oh well, Alec Baldwin is probably going to go into isolation for a long time because most people just turtle up. There's no way he's going to come back from that. But that being said, I don't think that any of this is actually his fault. I think that there was a projectile loaded into that gun. Safety protocols were not met. He pulled the trigger. Now, the weird thing about this is whether or not he pulled the trigger just in doing so, or if he pulled the trigger during a shoot. If he pulled it during a shoot, and it was lined up with the cinematographer, and that's what hit her, and then hit the director, then yeah, he's definitely not guilty. That's just, you know, they were safety concerns. They were not being met. They had inventory issues going on. So
Yeah, I think for me it might be an overly simplistic view, but I don't know on what planet this is Alec Baldwin's responsibility.
Yeah.
To me, it's just okay. So yeah, like the prop person, ensures that what's being handed to the actor is good to go, right? And like I said, I'm prepared to admit that it's overly simplistic. I wasn't aware that he had a producer's role on the movie, and so there in that way may bear moral legal responsibility. But it seems to me it's just like on what planet does a prop? I mean, because and this is coming from a point of ignorance, I guess, as well. Like, on what planet do they use real guns as props in movies? Like, why wasn't it just a fake gun in the first place? I mean, you can go to different places and you can buy guns that look like real guns for display purposes. It's not a real gun. It doesn't fire. It doesn't even have a, like it's a solid barrel. It doesn't even have a barrel to fire a bullet. I don't understand how a real gun is even on the set. And then even more than that, I don't like, so how did bullets get there too? And then how did the bullet get into the gun? It's just like, and how does it not get checked? Like Steven said, how does it not get checked just to ensure before we hand this thing over that it's not just completely safe? Why is there a fight? If it's a real gun, fine. Why didn't they take the firing pin out of it or something? Why didn't they just make it non-working in some regard? It still be the same thing. It still look like the real thing, and no capacity to cause harm.
Well, it wasn't an actual bullet that he fired. So they use blanks, which is basically the shell that's just filled up with gunfire or with gunpowder, and then when you fire it, the shell comes out, so it looks, and it still makes the bang and everything else, but there's just no projectile to kind of come out from that bang. It's the only thing that's missing, so it looks like he's just shot a real gun for the in the movie. But sometimes what happens is, like, tiny pieces of the shell can come off because there's no bullet in the shell, but it's still exploding. Sometimes, like, little pieces of it can explode before it fully leaves the barrel, and it stays lodged in the chamber. But then as soon as you fire it a second time, that's now acting as a projectile that's coming out. So that's what's actually happened. It wasn't an actual bullet, but
that's just my ignorance.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Like, it's natural to presume. I mean, like, someone you hear about a death involving a gun, and then you're talking about it being on a set of a movie. It's kind of like, well, like it's natural to put two and two together to see it was a bullet. But yeah, no, I just can't understand why people would say that this is Alec Baldwin's fault. Like, I don't know. It's like blaming the actor for making a poor quality, like, costumes. Like, no, that's whoever's in charge of wardrobe. That's their fault. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're blaming. It's kind of take it out of that. It's kind of like blaming the 17-year-old at the till for the prices on the clothes going up by 30 cents. It's like it's nothing got to fucking do with him. Like, he don't set the prices, he just works there. It's that same kind of a thing. If, like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand it.
I get you.
It's a horrible tragedy.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And I mean, and everybody concerned, whether it be Baldwin himself, families of the victims, the victim who survived, and people who had to watch it happen. They're gonna need some therapy. They're gonna need some help. They're gonna need some support to get through it. Because it's a traumatic thing, for sure.
Yeah, I just
Yep.
I had that for reference to do with this topic, and I'll just kind of scroll down. I mean, obviously there's a photo of Alec Baldwin that was taken on like only a couple of minutes away, or after. There's the one that's kind of made the rounds on social media of him like like literally bent over, like he's like crouched down completely and he's against the set. Like that was what was used as like the photo to explain the story initially. I mean, like you can clearly see that the man is distraught. Like that he like of course naturally you would feel so unbelievably guilty if that's this one here. That one was the like one that like went everywhere. Yeah, I mean, like you can clearly see that the man is upset, and that like it was obviously unintentional and that he's naturally blaming himself. I mean, Jeff, you had said that this had happened on some other movie set, and yeah, that
Yes.
like he like had to go into isolation, like whatever, because he did feel. But I mean, like of course, so you just would naturally. Oh, Jeff's gone. But yeah, but you just would naturally, feel guilty and feel bad about it. I have just realized I don't actually. No, didn't actually have the article on screen, but it is there now. Anyway, oh, here's Jeff back. What happened, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why that I dropped out, but I did.
Yeah, but like yeah, you can so understand and you can so kind of see why he would be upset and why he might be blaming himself and stuff like that. Like just for other people to kind of say that it was his fault, then I just it's like rubbing salt in the wound, twisting the knife, that kind of thing. Like it's making a bad situation worse for him because he already blames himself naturally, as any of us would. And then to have people say like, "No, it is your fault." Like,
yeah, he's gonna feel guilty enough. He's not gonna need any help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Brother,
I hate to do this to you, but I kind of gotta step out.
No problem. Yeah, that's no problem. So you have your other thing on Praise's channel anyway. We're gonna be wrapping up now pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, and it's not for a couple hours, but I gotta put in some time with my wife.
No problem.
Because I love her. But yeah, Jefferson, good to see you again. Stephen, it's a pleasure as always.
No problem.
And as always, yes.
And I will see you online and other places.
You will. Talk to you again, Michael. Yeah. So
I also need to let you go.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I also need to let you go. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I need to let you go as well. I'm over here with my family. I need to bow out tonight. So.
Yeah, that's no problem. That's no problem at all. Yeah, right. Yeah. So thanks, Jeff, for coming along, and should we talk to you again?
Yeah. Thank you. It's been great being on this show with you. So, take care.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So look, it's a terrible situation, from kind of start to finish. I can't even imagine how Alec Baldwin must be feeling. My deepest sympathy, of course, goes out to her family and everything else. Yeah, it's just a horrible situation. I can't even imagine what it must be like, to have to kind of go through all of that. But yeah, anyway, I was hoping to hear from a few more people. I haven't heard anything from them yet, and we've been going for about almost 2 hours now. So yeah, don't think they're going to be popping in. But basically, yeah, look, sum up for the show. I'll be breaking this into segments. Capitalism, very, very bad. Very, very bad. Some form of leave for all parents, regardless of gender, everything else like that, so they can bond with their children. Good. This is good thing. And Alec Baldwin's situation, completely fucked up. How anybody can even consider blaming him for something that was not his fault, I genuinely don't understand. It's just like I can kind of get like if you're not sure about it, or if you're not sure about like how these things work, like, and that it isn't his job to check everything before he fires. Like, if it's coming from a place of ignorance, that's fine, but you know what I mean, to hear from people who have been like, no, like, this is what it's actually like, and like, no, it's actually not his fault, that's somebody else's completely. To even to hear that, and then for you to go like, well, no, I don't believe it. It's, you know, look, I just don't personally understand how anybody can say that this is Alec Baldwin's fault. So yeah, that bad situation. Anyway, I wanted to just say once again, thank you to absolutely everybody who turned up. Thank you to Jeff. Thank you to Michael. Thank you everybody in the live chat. This was my first, if you're watching this back, this is the first live chat that my girlfriend entered the live chat. So, you know, stepping stone, milestone, achievement there, whatever. Yeah, until the next time, which will hopefully be next week again, we will talk to you then. If I can find the fucking outro, then we will be going. I have no idea where my fucking... There we go. Jesus.